Ahead and start. Remember to speak up against child abuse. Give this video a thumbs up. Please hit the bell icon to be notified when I have a show. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Hello, we have Charles Rogers on the phone, and you see his name up there. Would you like to say anything to everybody? Because you can see the people in here.
Hello, Miss Crimes. Hello, Mr. Skinner. How's everybody doing today?
And with Eric, he's got somebody there with him, and it's Danielle. And there's someone else that came in as well. Hello, everybody is here. Listen. So we got a good show today. I told we have done so many on the Bentley Farms, the corrupt people over there in Cobb County in Marietta, Georgia. So I said, since I've had a live yesterday and I wanted more people to get to know Charles Rogers since he knows more of the facts behind more than what I do know. And he also validates a lot of what I'm saying when I brought some of the things up. So without further ado, I'm going to let Charles talk. We're going over JonBenet Ramsey, calling this part one, discussing how Charles met John Ramsey, how he met Beth Ramsey and Matt Derrington. Without further ado, I'll let you go ahead and you can give us a brief introduction to the people that don't know you.
Okay, well.
Can y'all, first of all, can everybody hear him? Give me a one if y'all can hear him. Please. Go ahead, keep talking so that.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Please give a one if y'all can hear him. I see somebody at Facebook could hear because they gave a thumbs up.
Okay. All right. Well, being partly raised in Marietta, Georgia, native Cobb County, I was working with my uncle Morris Beach and sales of Kirby vacuum cleaners and out of Athens, Georgia, under Chandler Enterprises, and he wound up leaving the distributor I was working with and went to work for the one in Atlanta, and I got promoted to his position as a field counselor, which was sales manager in the sales office. And I had purchased a vehicle from a buddy of mine a couple of weeks ago, earlier, that needed some more work done on the engine and correct the oil leak. So I had come back to Marietta. I had dropped him off. It was a Mazda 626 for him to repair. And he loaned me his 72 Cutlass convertible. So that's what I was using to get around in. So I decided to drive over to the Waffle House, Unit 479 on Roswell Road and Greenbrier Parkway there in Marietta by the 120 loop, where I had previously worked, and figured I'd stop in there and visit with the cook and the waitresses that I used to work with. And they had told me about this young lady that had come in numerous occasions looking for me for like 3-month period. She would come in there quite a few times a month asking for me, and kept telling the staff that whenever they saw me to pass me her pager number where I could page her and get in touch with her. So, unbeknownst to me, I went in there and was having coffee, and they started telling me about her, and so they had my curiosity up, and I couldn't think of anyone that would, why a real attractive lady would be coming looking for me at the Waffle House. So it really had me going about wondering who this woman was. She was a Beth Jones, is what they had been told. But I had missed her by 30 minutes. She had been there just 30 minutes before I arrived, asking about me. And they said she had been in there before a couple of times with her boyfriend. So that let me know it wasn't someone trying to locate me to date me or anything like that. So when they told me that I had missed her and she had been in there 30 minutes earlier and left her pager number, the waitress went ahead and paged her for me. So she called back to the restaurant there, and they told her that I was there. So she was pretty quick on getting there, like 15 minutes from wherever she was at.
And this,
and
Charles,
we met, and that's actually was Beth Ramsey.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. This is and on the screen right now, I got on Find a Grave. I got some pictures of her, Elizabeth Beth Ramsey. This is John Ramsey's oldest daughter. Okay, y'all wondering who she is? This is the oldest daughter.
Mm-hmm. Well, she had borrowed a little thing. It was a Chevrolet Geo. She had borrowed from her friend. I think her name was Paula. She had went to grammar school when she lived in Marietta. So she came in and we met and asked me if we could step out to her car and talk, and got into the automobile, and that's when she introduced me as a real name, Beth Ramsey. And
is that where you also met Matt Derrington, her boyfriend?
Well, I met him the next day. But this is the first time that I met her before I met him.
Okay, this is important while we're going over this. People, don't get me wrong, okay?
But yeah, her have been in there trying to locate me, but this was the first time that I met her, which wasn't with him. And so when she introduced herself, she told me that that her dad's name was John Ramsey, and I wanted to know if I knew him. I told her, I was like, well, the only John Ramsey that I know of was one who was trying to help my brother and his friends kill me a few days before my 18th birthday back in 1983.
Okay, hold on a minute. Did y'all hear him? His own brother was Fred Rogers, and he was on the bad side. He was along with these bad people, okay? And they were trying to kill Charles Rogers. John Ramsey was part of the people that was trying to kill my friend here. All right, y'all got that?
Yeah, he was partner with, or they were partners with the same family who tried to sexually exploit me in 1972 and 73. The Bentleys there in Marietta.
Yeah, the same ones that my daddy sold me to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same place you described, the 2-story concrete barn, and the pasture, and the redwood wooden barn that used to be located there.
Yes.
Um, that were destroyed in the court settlement between George Bentley Sr. and my dad back in 1978 and 79, which were destroyed in 1980.
Right.
So when I told her that only John Ramsey I knew was one that was, trying to help my brother and them kill me, she goes, "Oh yeah, that's my dad." So she kind of scared me up front there during our first part of our conversation about that.
I can imagine so.
And I was like, "Well, I don't know what business you have trying to locate me for your dad." And she goes, "Well, no, I didn't come to locate you for my dad. I just know about you because of my dad." And that's when she started telling me stuff about the Bentley, about my experiences with the Bentleys since my childhood. She knew about the lawsuit Bentley had filed against my dad um, for the death of Jim Stubbs. She knew about the court settlement. She knew about the 6 acres of land I was supposed to receive in July of 1996 with a house and $450,000 from the court settlement. She knew everything. So I was like, "Oh, well," I asked her, who you with, CIA? And she was like, "Well, no. My dad, he's married for the second time, and he has 2 children, but he's got this, 16 or 18-month-old daughter that he had that I'm really, really concerned about."
And talk about JonBenet.
Which was JonBenet, and how she started coming around more often after she was born. And the following day, during our meeting with Matt, she reiterated that she didn't, after Burke was born, she did come and see Burke, and she did get to hold Burke for the first time, but Burke really didn't have the kind of effect on her that JonBenet did whenever she sat down and held her for the first time.
Right.
Because she said it was like, when she held her, it was like she was looking at herself. She could not believe how much her little half sister favored her when she was an infant. So she just fell in love with JonBenet from the moment that she, got to hold her after she was born. And she had gotten a job through her dad for Delta Airlines, and was a stewardess / cocktail waitress. And she also worked at a establishment part time near Chicago as a cocktail waitress. There is what she called herself.
Right.
And that's how I first met Beth Ramsey.
And they got to understand that JonBenet Ramsey was not an actual blonde. They dyed her hair, right?
Yeah, that's correct. If Beth was a brunette, and JonBenet was born the same color hair as her brother and her mother, and she was a brunette. So they had dyed her hair like John had told Beth he was going to do once everything went down.
Yeah, we'll tell them in a few minutes about what had happened and what went down.
Well, what had happened was in 1983, after I had this ordeal down at the Chattahoochee River, during the murders of two black teenagers down there. I was told that my brother Fred and his best friend Roger Nance were being held against their will and forced to engage in sacrifices of two black children. And the group that they had went down there supposedly to interrupt the sacrifices, they called it. It was just really rape murders, what it was, on each of the boys.
And you seen some very high profile people back in that too, and you knew that you found out it was a setup to try to kill you, right?
Well, I believe it was a setup to get me down there because, yeah, I did see Ted Turner in the moonlight. I did see Jeff Epstein in the moonlight. I saw Fred Bentley Jr. in the moonlight. But everybody else was kind of like standing up on the bank. It was real dark and I couldn't see their faces. I could see all these figures, and it was like there was a bunch of people there, and I couldn't see them all. And I did the most gutsiest thing that anyone could do. I went down there and demanded for the safe return of my brother and bluffed the crowd that I had a large group of people waiting on me back up toward this old BP country store up there on up from the bridge there on West Paces Ferry Road, where this was taking place at. So John Ramsey and he was down there, and Frank Floyd, and of course I found out when I was walking out of there after I was told some of the voices in the dark that my brother would be safely returned, but not immediately.
Hey, I want to go ahead and tell people that Frank Floyd, he was Franklin Delano Floyd. Y'all can look him up, and he's got that big criminal history. And John Ramsey kind of sheltered him before when he was on the run, and he introduced Charles Rogers to him as Bill Ramsey when he's really Franklin Delano Floyd. So without further ado, I'll go back to you. I'm sorry. I just want to let the people know that tidbit of information.
Yeah, hello, Miss Helms, Miss
And
Evangelist, and Sheila. But anyway, I was I was asked by my cousin Robert. That's how I figured it was a setup because he was there.
Yeah, Robert Beach.
I heard that voice saying, "Charles, what do you think you're doing?" And I was like, "Robert, like, what are you doing here?" He goes, "Well, what do you think you're doing?" I said, "Well, I heard they're holding Fred and Roger against their will." Well, it's really not like that. And then, of course, Ed Bentley Jr., he said, "Hey, Charles, you remember me?" And I couldn't see his face. And I was like, "No, I can't say I do." And he goes, "Well, it's me, Ed Bentley Jr., Jim Stubbs' brother-in-law. You're not going anywhere."
Oh, boy.
I was like, I got this group of people up here waiting on me to return, who sent me down here, which there wasn't nobody but my buddy Roddy Miller waiting on me.
Yeah.
That's not what I told them. And because we had gone down there earlier with a police officer, and he wouldn't go down there and look, and we had his last name. So I told them that there was two police officers up there, and they wanted to know what their names was. And I was like, "Well, there's one guy up there. He's kind of round-headed guy." I told him his last name. I think it was Long. I might be incorrect on that, but can't totally remember. And then I had to give him a description of another officer. I said was, blonde hair and all that. And they mistook it as somebody that was off, but I was just making up his profile. And Robert was like, well, hey, maybe I need to go up there and talk to him. I was like, no, because that won't be necessary. I'll just go up there and tell them didn't see anything and everything's fine. And by that time, I saw this guy walking down by the river up towards the road to take a look up there, which I later learned was Fred Bentley Jr.
Right.
So I knew right then I better make my break. So I started walking out, and Ed hollered, "You better come back here." I said, "No, if you're going to shoot." No, he goes, "You better come back here, I'll shoot you." I said, "Well, you just have to shoot me in the back then."
So was that Fred Bentley or Fred, your brother?
No, that was Fred Bentley Jr. I later found out that was walking up along the river. I could see in the moonlight.
How were they related, the Ed Bentley and Fred? How were those two?
One more time.
How was Fred and Ed Bentley related?
Second cousins.
Okay,
Their dads were first cousins.
Thank you.
So Fred Bentley Sr. was an attorney. He was the founder of Bentley and Bentley Law Group with his sons, Fred Bentley Jr. and Randall Bentley Sr. And they were involved in the plot to set my dad up, frame him for the production of child pornographic material back in 72 and 73. And Fred had represented Jim Stubbs in getting his bond and getting him released from jail out on bond. So it was a family effort. That's how it became a target in 1972 and 73. But anyway, after that, Fred and Roger, they wound up with a job at Layton Graphics, and they started out learning microchip data entry. Well, since the United States government was going to shut down the production of mica in the United States the following year, the government gave the two top film companies, Kodak and Polaroid, the chance to bid on the new microfilm technology that was going to replace the microchip.
Right.
Technology that John Ramsey was training my brother and Roger and the technicians at Layton Graphics to do.
So that's how also it coincides with my story, how that state trooper, the pedophilia, the pornography and stuff, but they had to get the films developed from these people and the connections. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's correct, because you're not the first person who's ever mentioned the name Greenhall to me. I heard that name before. It was in North Carolina in the 90s.
Yeah.
From someone else that knew Eric Rudolph's mother.
Wow.
Conversation with me about this stuff in the greenhouse of Alabama. So you're not the first person that ever mentioned that last name.
Right.
But so Polaroid wound up with a better quality film, and of course John's buddy Del Montegraph, this is alias, nobody knows his real first name. He jumped companies from Kodak over to Polaroid. John partnered with Motorola, General Electric, and Robert, my cousin Robert Beach, and some of his buddies from IBM secretly helped them put together the computer hardware for the microfilm technology. So in October and November of 1983, John was volunteering his services to train the technicians at Layton Graphics, the data entry for Cobb County. And a few days before my 18th birthday, he had helped Mr. Lake obtain the contract for DeKalb County.
DeKalb County in Georgia.
Georgia.
Okay, because there's so many DeKalb counties in so many different states, like in Alabama as well. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what John was doing was he was going to make his money off of the federal government, Lockheed Martin, because this is who this was really designed for, was Lockheed Martin. But for the state and local governments, he trained these different companies for computer downloads, throughout the counties and different states who would take on the contracts with, state and local governments, while he did all the federal government. Is why he was training what people would think were his competitors. And that's where he got his second real break on contract with the United States government, was through the microfilm computer hardware.
Right.
So, my sister, she had purchased her a new automobile and decided to sell her 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix. I wasn't going to be able to sign off on the loan until my 18th birthday, so she went ahead and let me have the car 3 days before my 18th birthday. Well, Fred, he was
Your brother Fred.
Yeah, my brother Fred. He was excited that my sister had handed me the keys. Oh, we can go out. We can go out with his friends to the bars and stuff. And I was like, well, I really don't want to go to any bars, especially, driving, and especially, on the first night of driving a car that I'm not used to.
Right.
And, well, I'll chauffeur you. Well, my buddies at work and all that, we're going out. You need to come along. I was like, no, man, I'll be more happy just going to a movie, But he kept talking me into at least riding over there and meeting the guys that he and Roger, worked with. So, just
How about Roger?
Nance.
Okay.
So we rode over there. This is like 5:30, just before 6 o'clock in the evening. And we pulled into Layton Graphics, and, of course, Roger and the other two technicians, they were still upstairs in the building. But they came down when we got there. Then a short time later, here comes John Ramsey pulling up in his little, I think it was a Volvo station wagon he was in. And he got out, he come up, and they were all glad to see him. And Fred introduced me as his little brother. So they want to do some talking away from the surveillance cameras outside of the building.
Of course.
So we stepped out across the street there on Wolfville Drive, which is on the corner of Gresham Road there near Tip Top Poultry. And there's this post office there on the corner. So we just kind of stepped across the road there on the grass, standing out there talking, and which I had been told before I got there that I was going to meet one of the guys that was, in charge of the Atlanta child murders.
What?
That's what Fred had told me before we got there, and I wasn't too thrilled about meeting anyone who was involved in the Atlanta child murders. I already knew my cousin was involved, and I already knew that Ed Bentley Jr. was involved. So I didn't want to meet anybody that had been engaged in that activity. So I knew that whenever I met John Ramsey, that he was involved in the Atlanta child murders. So
Right.
we went up there.
So that tells
we were
y'all
talking.
something, a little bit more history behind him so far.
Mhm. So we were out there talking. Well, he didn't talk about the children he murdered, in Atlanta. They got to talking about hearing him talk about the different stories about the girls that he had abducted, raped, and murdered. And he was telling them, I can't remember the details of some of the girls, like alphabet murders that him and his friends did. And of course, later I found out Robert, my cousin, was involved in two of the alphabet murders. But I wasn't told that night. But he was telling the story about, I found out was 12-year-old Jill Robinson of the Oakland County child murders. And he said he had said they had taken her and they had done some things with her in this little shed or out, building outside. And that after they had, cleaned her up, fed her, he took her to get rid of her. And he shot her in the face with a shotgun. And when he said that he shot her in the face with a shotgun, Roger forgot what they said, but these guys bust out laughing about him shooting the poor girl in the face with a shotgun.
Oh, geez.
And I'm sitting there, I can't believe my eyes and ears that, my brother would even laugh about something like that. And he's sitting there laughing like it was, really, really hilarious. So,
But they tried to say that man charged of killing wife, daughters appears in court, the Colorado man, but that wasn't him, but that was that where he confessed and he laughed about it. What y'all think about that?
yeah, when he was sitting there telling the story, was he would kind of have a smirk on his face at times, like did something really funny. It's like this guy just enjoys and has fun what he does to children.
I'm going to put her picture up on the screen right here.
Mm-hmm. And thank
Tammy
you,
said she hopes that everything's going well with you.
Thank you, everybody. So Roger asked him about the one girl that got away, and he talked about this.
I'm showing everybody hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I'm showing everybody the picture of Jill Robinson right here. There's going to be, and look, notice the date that she died, December 26th.
Yes.
Keep that in mind, y'all, for later, okay?
Oh, she's going to come back up again.
Yes.
So he was started telling the story about the blonde, little 11-year-old blonde that was almost 12 and ran across at an ice cream parlor near Huntington, West Virginia.
And so this part makes me laugh with what happens. I'm sorry. I already know what's going on. I laugh.
And he said there was no inside, seating. And he pulled up to the parlor to get some ice cream. And this 11-year-old blonde had just purchased her ice cream. It was hot outside. So he looked at her and offered her a ride in the station wagon around town to where she wouldn't have to worry about her ice cream melting,
Right.
And the girl, she took him up on his offer and got in his automobile. So he drove her around, but he didn't drive her toward town. He took a side road and drove out toward the country and drove to the base of a mountain out into this field and secluded location. And he got her out and he forced her into the back of the station wagon and just before he was able to, as started to sexually assault her, he failed to remove her tennis sneakers. And she gained footing on the seat and on the floorboard, and she landed her knee in the groin, pancaked his family jewels, and elbowed him in the ribs and punched him in the face and got away.
Yay! Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I heard that. I kind of like a little grin myself, and I asked him. I said, Mr. Ramsey, don't mind me asking you a question. And was like, yeah, sure. What's that? I said, how old are you? And he looked at me real funny, which of course he lied about his age. He told me he was 36 when he was actually just 40. And he goes, well, I'm 36. I said, 36 years old. So you're saying because you removed the tennis shoes from this girl, she was able to escape? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, what makes you think that she wouldn't, whoop your butt without her tennis sneakers on? Oh, no. When they remove the tennis sneakers off, they can't do nothing with them, I was like, really? So let me get this right. You were about to rape her? He goes, yeah. I was like, well, how far did you get? He goes, well, I had just pulled down her shorts and was about to pull down her panties when she gained her foot. And I was like, well, daggum. Just because you failed to remove 11-year-old blonde's tennis shoes means you got your butt whooped by 11-year-old blonde, right? He goes, well, I wouldn't put it like that. I said, well, she escapes. Didn't she punch? He goes, well, she helped me, punched me a couple of times and ran and screamed for help. I was like, well, shoot. Dang, you got your butt whooped by 11-year-old blonde. Shoot, I'm not even 18 years old yet. That means I could whip your butt all the way from here to Tip Top Poetry with one hand tied behind my back. And of course, Fred, Roger, and the other two technicians there, they were like, huh? And Fred was like, hey, Charles, step over here, Benet. I'm like, what, Fred? He's like, man, what do you mean making that remark to Mr. Ramsey like that? I was like, well, you used to get other kids at school to do stuff like this to where I would fight them. I said, I thought that's what you wanted me to see, or want to see me fight Mr. Ramsey. No, that's not the motive for him telling those stories. I'm not wanting you to fight Mr. Ramsey. He would not be too happy with that. I said, well, that's what I mistook. Well, John overheard that, and he's like, oh, Fred, really? Did you used to get your brother into fights and, getting other kids to do this stuff? And Fred goes, well, yeah, I did a time or two. Well, that's understandable, Fred. I understand your brother's remark now. That's really respectful that, your brother is that really plain spoken. I admire that, And, right after that, it's right around the time that Mike McLaughlin arrived in his brown Buick Centurion.
For people that don't know Mike McLaughlin, sorry about that. For anybody that don't know who Mike McLaughlin is, he is the judge, magistrate of Marietta, Cobb County in Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had witnessed him committing a homicide in that automobile back in 1980 on Ebenezer Road when I was in the 8th grade of middle school on the back of the school bus. And I found out that the department still has the incident report from that incident. It involved the brick mailbox of the sheriff, Bill Hudson's sister, who lived next door to him at the time. So here comes Mike McLaughlin arriving in that brown Duke Centurion, and I'm like, holy cow, this is the same guy I'm a homicide witness against, is what I'm thinking. He's got Frank Floyd with him, and they pull over across from Wilco Road there on Gresham Road. Used to be this little parking area there where the employees of Tip Top Poetry used to park their vehicles. So we stepped over there, and they got out. And McLaughlin had told them that he had just started the job with pretrial services there at the magistrate court, and was in the process of getting his stuff moved into his apartment. So he was going to have to leave. Bill is who they called him there.
The Bill Ramsey, who was Franklin Floyd, yes.
But it was Frank Floyd going by Bill Ramsey.
And back when you saw the murder for Judge McLaughlin, he was not a judge at the time. He was living in where?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, thank you.
Where he's from.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And these 2 times he had his Tennessee, the dark blue Tennessee license plate with a, white trim of the state. I was not able to get his tag number in 1980, but it was the same guy, same automobile.
So yeah, you knew it was the same because of that.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, I got a really good look at his automobile, inside it and all that, while he was there before he left. I was trying to be cool with him and blow it off because I didn't know what these people were capable of. But of course, I found out I had to run for my life that night. But
it's funny how much they'll divulge to somebody, and next thing you know, and they divulge it to you because you're not going to adhere and be like your brother Fred and cower and then do this as well. Instead, you want to fight against it. You go, no, I'm not going to do this, whatever. And then they want to go after you. It's amazing how much somebody will divulge to you and then try to kill you.
Oh yes, they wouldn't have told me this stuff if they wasn't planning on getting rid of me that night. They were either going to get rid of me or possibly take me out and engage in something like that. And there's no way in the world I would engage in something like that. They probably would have had to kill me. But they couldn't keep up with me. I was really, really athletic. And I had only been living back in Marietta for maybe less than a year after moved back down from Suches, Georgia. So I was all the time hiking around in the North Georgia mountains. When I went to school up there at Lumpkin County High in Dahlonega. So my dad still had the house up there, and we would still go up there and stay on the weekends and stuff like that.
I think that's where Butterbrains live too, right?
Butterbrain, I don't know where Joe Pugh lived at. I don't think Joe Pugh lived in Suches. No, he lived in Marietta because he's from Marietta, graduate from Sprayberry High School and the University of Georgia.
I was trying to remember where the Butterbrains had taken me to, and I know that we went over there to Wild Bill's, and here I was, 30-something year old, not knowing that I was with this sex predator that was with Bentley Barnes from earlier when I was younger. I met up with him again from the date site, not knowing he was one of these dangerous culprits.
Yeah, Wild Bill's, if I remember correctly, was a strip club.
It was no, it had it wasn't a strip club at that time. No, it was really a bar. They had people coming there. A lot of the people were line dancing. They had a mechanical pool.
Okay,
They had a
that's right.
sports
That's right.
place
It
at the
was
back
down.
part, and it had bands that came and played like Keith Urban, and so they had concerts in there and stuff when I went.
Yeah, that was College Park. It was by a strip club. Is what it
Right.
was.
I would not go into a strip club.
Okay. Yeah, it was next door to a strip club.
I
That's right.
did go to a
Country
strip club
Western.
once. Sorry.
Oh,
Somebody
yeah.
stopped in and said they needed to get a drink one time, and I was with them, and he said this is a regular bar, and I went in there, and there's a lady up there stripping, and I'm like, I want to get out of here, and he was my ride, so I had to wait till he was done, and there was no way I wanted to bother with this. I wanted out of there.
Yeah, it was located in Forest Park. I can't remember which road it was located. I would pass by it, but that's why I mistook it as that one strip, one strip bar that was on what is now Jonesboro Road in Forest Park.
Okay. Well, a lot of them roads have really changed over the years since the 70s to now.
Mm-hmm. Well, um, but that's how I got to meet John Ramsey and Frank Floyd, and of course we walked over there to the parking lot after McLaughlin left. Floyd, of course, you got to remember, I knew him as Bill Ramsey.
Right.
And of course, they didn't, they stated they were not related, but they had just met by chance. And that's, Fred and Roger asked them how they met, to where they could sit there and tell me how they met. And I said that Frank was living in Rochester, New York, renting a room. He was an old lady. And John was up there during a sales convention at this motel. And after the convention was over, that he left the motel and decided he was going to go find either a date to bring that to the motel, or he was going to find him a victim, a girl. And so he had driven down this busy street and made a left by the supermarket, drove back in the neighborhood near the supermarket, and he saw this blue Dodge van pulled over side the road. This guy, who was Frank Floyd, trying to abduct this, 11, 12-year-old brunette. So he went speeding over there in his automobile to jump out and help the abductor.
You're going to help the abductor. Wasn't going to help the child at all. He went to go help the. Oh.
So when he went running up to help Floyd, Floyd pulled his knife out and tried to stab him. And he had to sit there and tell him, no, don't try to stab me. I'm not here trying to help her. I'm here trying to help you. She's about to get away. So they laughed about that, how they got her and forced her in the back of Floyd's van where he could tie her up. And Ramsey could follow him to this location that he had found of some old abandoned house. And that's how the two partnered up.
Sick.
They always video recorded what they did to their victims, and they really thought it was funny that the police had dubbed them as the alphabet murders, because they did not target their victims, and just they picked their victims at random, and it was just a coincidence that their letters of the first and last names matched up, that they had not pre-planned to abduct those girls.
What were their initials again? I forgot.
Well, Carmen Cologne was the first one. I forgot the other two girls' names. But my cousin Robert, he was 18 at the time, and they took him up there, and he was involved. least one of those girls' murders, and that's how he got initiated into their clique there, I guess. Was participating in one or two of the other two girls' homicides. I don't remember which number, but he engaged in at least one. And then, of course, he came back down to Marietta, became a police officer in 1973. So he did their dirty work instead of doing Stubbs. Stubbs could get hired on the police department before he was arrested in 73. So Robert started with the department in 73.
Yeah, see, one of the ones in Washington was, I think it says, let me see her name again. Go back to the top of the screen. Wanda Walkowitz.
Okay.
She's one of them. From,
Well, he later went to work for IBM Security and worked his way up the corporate ladder. So he had left just before 1980, just before I witnessed McLaughlin committing a homicide in 1980, and he had come over there to talk to me about it because him and Ed Bentley had raided the couple's house that lived there on the corner of Knott Road and Ebenezer Road, thinking I was their son. And they come to find out that their son was already grown, married with children, and their daughter was in college. And come to find out there was only one boy that lived in that area, that age.
it was you. They're not Fred would have gave them the right location with them being affiliated with them, though, you know?
Well, this is before Fred got affiliated with them.
Oh, it's before it, okay.
Mm-hmm. And this is when Roger Nance came into play after that. We went to that event over there at Marietta Baptist Tabernacle, Marietta Christian School, same thing. And that's when Fred and Roger befriended each other. Now, if I remember correctly now, Robert and Ed Bentley had came over there, and I think they had introduced Fred to Roger. So they recruited Roger first, then they recruited Fred. Yeah. That's how that worked.
And we're going to go back another time. We're going to fill in the blanks here. We want to get back over there to saying what happened with Beth Ramsey.
Yes.
And Matt Derrington. Let's get back over there. They need to go watch more of my videos because we got a lot of the different talks on these things going on. So my main thing right now is talking more about Beth Ramsey and Matt Derrington as well, and John Ramsey, how y'all met basically, and then saying what had happened and transpired, which shows that John Ramsey and what his promise to Beth Ramsey was.
Mm-hmm. Well, they wound up chasing me all over Blackjack Mountain and Bentley Farm that night before my 18th birthday, after I met John Ramsey and Frank Floyd and Mike McLaughlin for the second time. And Joe Pugh, who you know is Butterbrain.
Right.
He was out there helping them, you know, look around for me. I didn't know a lot of the names of the people that was out there helping them scout around looking for me. I know I had to hide up on the bank of this creek when they walked over above me looking for me. So I was able to work my way in behind them over toward the neighborhood of Barrett Road and Allgood Road. And even my pastor at Eastwood Baptist Church refused me assistance that night.
That's sickening. He should have opened the door and helped you out.
Well, he didn't want any involvement because um, Bentley's had built that church.
Oh, really? Ooh.
So, but the Thomases, I was a member of the church. They're the ones who let me in their home to where I could contact my dad. And he came and got me and later took me back to Layton Graphics to have Fred and Roger to follow us back to the house where he could take them home and have a talk with Roger.
Thank God for the Thomases, that family then that helped you out.
Well, he told them that night he didn't care who this John Ramsey guy was who did anything to me. And he didn't care which part of the world he went and hid in, he would find him and kill him. Because John Ramsey really wanted me bad, according to them, which now doesn't bother me, but it used to bother me a lot because these people get after you, they just don't stop.
No, they don't.
So, anyway, so when I'm talking with Beth Ramsey, I told her, that her dad was, trying to help my brother and they'll kill me that night. And she told me, well, yeah, that's my dad. That's what, that kind of shook me up because she had learned when she started going over and staying with John and Patsy more often. She said she was sitting outside of his study one night watching television just outside the door, and he had left the door partly open and was in on the phone conversation. And she couldn't help hear the conversation, which my name came up. So she started doing eavesdropping and started listening to his conversations. And that's how she started finding out about me. Sometimes some of them would come over there and meet him in the study. They would go in there and they'd have their talks. And she would go over and just kind of listen in to what their conversations were. It was how she was able to learn about me. They had determined that they were not going to honor the 1978-79 court settlement and give me a house with 6 acres of land at Bentley Farms, since that was their human trafficking operation.
Okay, hold on a minute. Sheila asked a question. No, Beth was John's first wife's child.
Yes, Patsy is John's second wife. Lucy Lucinda, she was first wife. She and John had divorced 1978, 1979.
And John and Lucinda, the first wife, they had, can you name their children?
Yeah, Beth was the oldest. Melinda was younger, and John Andrew was the youngest.
Thank you. And then Patsy and John's kids are Burke and JonBenet.
Right. So, anyway, she wanted to tell me more, but not without her boyfriend being there. So we set up a meeting to meet the following evening, which I did go back over there to meet them again. And she had work that day, so she showed up in her, in her Delta Airlines outfit and was all fixed up and looked like a totally different woman. The next day I didn't recognize her. But she came over there with Matt's white BMW. So that's when I got to meet Matt. And Matt was a pretty straight up guy. He worked in computer marketing, sales, what he did for a living. So he was in computers. Beth, she had contemplated suicide because she had been sexually abused um, before and after she turned 6 years of age by her daddy.
Right. Y'all
And
hear
it
that?
continued, and according to her, one day, of course, Matt had to lay it out to me, and she iterated that one day she had saw John put his hand up the dress of her younger sister, Melinda. And that's when she went to her mother and told her mother what had gone on. So when she was in high school, she had turned to drugs like marijuana and drinking, trying to cope with the damage that she had dealt with. She kept having these dead end relationships, boyfriends, being a cheerleader, and her life just got ripped apart. She attempted to commit suicide, so she had to check herself into a facility to get some help. Well, Matt was just a good friend. He cared about her. And he came and started attending some of the meetings and counseling with her, and they just fell in love. And their families were all the time trying to get him and her to tie the knot, but they knew once they tied the knot and got married, next thing their families was going to want to know, well, were you going to have your first child? Were you going to have some babies? And they just were not ready to have any children, the way her daddy and her granddad, Jay Ramsey, were.
Jay Ramsey, is he not the one who did the airstrip for Epstein?
No, that was Francis Duffield Sheldon.
Okay, that was Francis that did that. Well, who was
that
that?
was
Okay, go.
first Epstein Island.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Was trying to think about how Jay, but Jay helped the first wife of John's to help them divorce John, since he found out that John was messing with Melinda and Beth. But it's kind of weird that he was in that thing himself doing that kind of stuff, but he did end up helping Lucinda to leave John, right?
Well, what Matt thought, he saw the benefit in getting John, divorced and single again, is the reason why he helped out Lucy get the children and relocate secretly without John knowing, that he had helped Lucy get away and file for the divorce and relocate from Marietta. Because according to Beth, her mother did not like John's friends in Atlanta, which good reason.
Yeah, really good reason. They were murderers and child rapists and
They were the pedophile elite scum of the earth of Atlanta in the United States, according to what Bev said. And they had tried to contact me like a few weeks earlier, a month earlier, because the Bentleys had been holding a 9-year-old Hispanic girl over there in one of the barns and was sex trafficking her.
Yes.
And they were not able to get in touch with me to see if I could go over there and rescue that girl before they moved her or got rid of her. And so she had got word that they had 2 black teenage boys that was being held there in the barn there on the 120 loop just past the Roswell Road on ramp. They're on Bentley Farm.
And they were foster kids, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or
Yes, ma'am. Both boys were in foster homes. When they were turned over, they did not run away. They were just handed over.
the foster parents handed them over to these pedophiles. Can y'all believe that, y'all?
If I remember correctly, the 15-year-old, the 15-year-old I think was from Birmingham. And it was the 13-year-old that was from out east of Orlando. But they had brought those two in from Orlando in Florida. Because after the arrest of Wayne Williams in 1981, they stopped taking children from Atlanta to continue in their initiations, is what I call, what people call sacrifices. It's not, it's an initiation. And they take these boys out and they take turns sexually assaulting them. The new people that are brought in, and then they kill them, and cut off their genitalia. Of course, that's where the blood is sucked out of.
Right.
That's what almost got Eric Rudolph murdered by his mom, not murdered, killed by his mother twice, was because of the question he had asked me in the Radio Shack January of '97 about that.
Hold on, let me put the banner up. I'm going to put trigger warning. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I forgot about the trigger warnings, but that's to my understanding of what they do in these initiations. The torture these children have to endure, prior to their deaths.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Go ahead and tell them what he had asked you, and then you went and told his mama, Eric Rudolph's mom.
Well, I wasn't able to tell her until 2 years later, after he was on the run, being wanted by the FBI. But I was able to meet her after they lost their death wager on the 19th of October, 1999.
If there's any kids around, make sure your kids are not around when he says this, all right?
Mm-hmm. But I was called into a meeting in the Radio Shack on my oldest brother Bill's birthday for a little discussion over there with Doug McRae, his nephew Matt McRae, and Eric Rudolph. And that's when they pretty much admitted to being responsible for the homicides of 8-year-olds Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers in the West Memphis, Arkansas murders known as the West Memphis 3 homicides. So while discussing that matter with me, Eric Rudolph asked me if I had ever sucked blood from a dead boy's penis. And my response to him was, no, I cannot say that I ever have. And his remark was, well, there's no other drug in the world like it. So apparently it provides some type of euphoria to these people. I don't know. Maybe a superb adrenaline rush for all I can think. From what I've heard out of other people that's done their research, but that's the purpose of terrorizing these children to the point that the drilling gathers down into the growing area in the males and females, and it's supposed to concentrate their terrorizes while they focus on the genitalia. Anyway, I was able to meet best friend Paula the evening I met Matt, and we had our discussions. We met again the following day, set up our plan. So around the fourth day, after setting everything up, the plan was I would they would let me off right there at the Roswell Road on ramp for the 120 loop, and I had to work my way down in the gully there and up to this barn where they were holding these boys up in the loft.
Okay, hold on a minute. I remember one important. Hold on a minute. I remember one important part that was left off. You got to let. I need to let them know of mine. Okay. One of the agreements that he had told Beth Ramsey is to not tell a soul about what was going to happen, and she wanted to tell her older brother John. What?
No, her younger brother.
A younger brother. Sorry.
16.
What,
Yeah.
what was his name?
John Andrew.
John Andrew, and Charles said, "No, do not tell him."
Well, we all did. Her friend Paula, Matt, all three of us told her we didn't think it'd be a good idea for her to tell John Andrew.
Right.
And she agreed not to tell John Andrew. So the evening we got ready to do this, she told us that she had told John Andrew, and we still went against our better judgment and tried to rescue those two teenagers anyway.
Yeah, because y'all wanted to make sure, try at least, because you knew that they were going to be sacrificed regardless.
Yeah, they were going to kill them regardless. They had these guys camped out across the 120 loop in tents like they were homeless. They weren't homeless. I mean, the reason why they were homeless were they were like their prison guards across the road. If the boys tried to escape out the front, they would just shoot them dead. They're on the spot. So I had to sneak in from behind the barn and be able to get up in the loft and untie these boys without these guards out across the road seeing me. So it was a little challenging getting in there without being seen, so I thought. And the boys, they had pretty much had themselves untied. They would just tie themselves back up anytime they were approached by the Bentleys or anyone.
Right.
They could have escaped on their own, but they were afraid if they were escaped, they would have been killed. You know.
Yeah, like that one I saved escaped that time, and they shot him in the chest when I was standing outside in the yard.
But I would sit there and I told them, I was like, well, if y'all want to live, here's your chance to get out of here. But they're going to wind up killing you anyway. So once they realized that they were going to die anyway, they thought that they were just going to be sex trafficked. And I said, no, this is going to be the end of the line for you. So I really felt bad about getting them to escape, but we did. I was to take them up behind Pike Nursery, but not enough to get in use of the cameras. Tried to avoid the cameras at Pike Nursery, and they're beside the British BP gas station that was on the corner. And I was to cross Greenbrier Parkway, leave one teenager with Matt and Beth, and run with the other teenager to the Eastgate Shopping Center, where Paula was going to be waiting in her automobile to take the other teenager and me over to this place there by what was Southern Polytech back then, somewhat to do with the military instead of the police department because, you know,
As bad as a village, yeah. Yeah, because
so our plan was Beth and Matt would take one teenager to the location. We would take Paula and I. We would take the other teenager to the location. So if they got one of our vehicles, we could at least get one of the teenagers to safety.
Right.
Well, the problem is John Andrew had told his daddy right after Beth had told him. So
yeah, she trusted him though. She trusted him. She really thought that he wouldn't tell.
So when we went running up, I looked up, and lo and behold, there was that damn Buick Centurion again. So I was going to run out with the boys. I hollered at them to cut up with me and told them not to cross, and they didn't listen. So they went running their path anyway. So when I went running across above them, they fell and hit the pavement. I heard what sounded like when I immediately stopped. Sounded like a bumblebee flew by my head. Robert had shot the two boys and dropped them right there on Greenbrier Parkway.
Did Robert Beach?
Yes, ma'am. I
and Ed Bentley Jr.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike McLaughlin, he was Judge McLaughlin, and he gets out of the car and he comes walking over, shaking his head, and he goes, "Yeah, Charles, if you hadn't cut up that way when you did, we probably would have shot you too." But since you got yourself involved with that, we're going to go over there and destroy the court documents from the clerk's office over your settlement with the families. So if you tell your dad or anyone will kill your dad if you tell them what we're doing. So I couldn't tell my dad.
And now he's dead, so now you can tell all you like.
Mm-hmm. So, but he looked at Beth and Matt, and he just shook their heads and said, "Well, John, don't go anywhere. Your dad's going to be here shortly." And of course, John arrived about 10 minutes later with John Andrew and, best friend Paula. So he told John Andrew to get in vehicle. Well, he had to talk with us, and he looked at Beth, and he looked at her, and he goes, "Beth, what do you think you're doing?" And he looked at Matt, and he goes, "Matt, you come from, good family. They're good people, But what in the world do you think you're doing here?" And he looked over at Paula, and he goes, "Paula, you come from good family, well-to-do Christian family and all that. What do you think you're doing? Now him," and he points at me, he goes, "Now him, I can understand why he's here. But I want to know how he got here, because I really can't blame him in as much as I do you other three, but especially you, young lady," pointing his finger at Beth. He goes, "Why are you doing this?" And that's whenever Beth started going into what he used to do to her when she was a little girl that she didn't like, and how it had changed her, and that she could not marry and have children, knowing he was the kind of father and grandfather that he is.
Yeah,
So
yes, if there's something
like,
happened to her, they would do that to the grandkids. So like if they, even if they went ahead and killed them or something like that, then they would have tried to get the grandkids away and done the same stuff.
he goes, well, you know, I am not going to allow any of my children to betray me and live to talk about it, young lady.
But he betrayed them.
Yes. He goes, none of my offspring are going to betray me and be able to live and talk about it when they get old.
And that reminds me right now, so y'all need to quit blaming Burke also.
Yes, most definitely. So he goes, you know, if I might give you a year to live, you know, just based upon your kindness, so I'll just make that determination later on. But Beth, you know, you two, I had so much love and confidence in you two that you two are going to be dead the next 90 days. And he looks at me, he goes, you, I don't know about. I might give you 2 years if you're lucky. But you 3 are going to be dead within a year. I promise you. So, Beth, I just want to know why. What was your main motivation? And she's like, well, the things you used to do to me when I was little, I just couldn't sit back and allow you to do it to JonBenet. Oh, so you're saying this was over JonBenet? And she nodded her head up and down, and she goes, so JonBenet was your motivation to do all this? She was like, yes. Well, I got news for you, young lady. Since JonBenet was your main motivation to cause all of this, is to let you know I'm not only going to have you killed, but I'm going to take her, I'm going to dye her hair blonde. And we're going to dress her up like a little beauty queen in these little child beauty pageants that you so much detest. And I'm going to wind up raping her myself. And I'm going to wind up passing her around like a madam in a brothel. Then I'm going to have her killed on Christmas of 1996 on the 20th anniversary of that little brunette I killed up there in Oakland County. And she coming back then. Just to get you back. So I'll have control over your soul for eternity. You will be mine. So I took it as he believes that he's Satan himself, and that was his way of getting control. Soul of his daughter Beth was killing JonBenet on the anniversary of the homicide of Jill Robinson. Because that's exactly what he did. Now, Paula, she went and rented her a room. They were in Midtown in Atlanta, and had her a job working as a waitress. So she was able to survive until January of 1997, and she spotted me thereby seeing in Centennial Park, and my minivan driving up Freedom Parkway. And when she pulled up beside me, I recognized when I'm afraid of service. She was persistent on stopping and talking, but they had I was being tailed by that bunch up in Murphy, North Carolina. And so when they got to Chase and Paula, they had a big old dump truck that was destined for her to crash into. But as they was chasing her in her automobile up Peachtree Street, a MARTA bus pulled out in front of her, and she hit the MARTA bus and lost her life when she hit the bus. So she didn't even make it to the designated truck she was supposed to crash into to lose her life.
Right. It's how many of these people that we see that they put up these roadblocks and then put these big old vehicles out there for people to crash into, but they make it look like it was an automobile accident,
Well,
that it was not murder.
Well, I remember in 1984, this was really the first chase. My wife got after me there in Marietta. It's actually that same road that runs adjacent to Interstate 285 from Powers Ferry Road to the Acres Mill interchange right there on 285. And I was in my 77 Grand Prix. I had radio tune suspension, little of 301 V8, but the car handled. I mean, this is the best handling automobile I've ever owned, was a 77 Grand Prix.
Could I ask you a question right quick? What was their friend's name that got killed?
Paula?
Yeah, what was her full name? Do you know?
No, I do not remember her full name. I know her family was from Cobb County.
Okay.
Or have lived in Cobb County for quite some time.
Okay. Because I know a lot of people's probably wondering the same thing, like what was her name,
Well, I figure eventually her family will probably step up and say something. You never know. The same thing with the Derringtons. I was hoping to, touch base with Matt's family as well. Because I know his family has to know why they were murdered, that was not an accident up there near Chicago. Because after this happened, we had our talk. The evening after the following day, the insanity of going back over there was unbelievable. I could not believe that they wanted to go back over there and have a discussion with my brother Fred and Roger Nance and my cousin Robert and Ed Bentley.
You're talking about cousin Robert Beach, Beitch.
Yes, ma'am. Then, to me, it was like a suicide mission, but they were persistent about going back over there. Beth wanted to see what was in the barn. So we walked back down to the barn to discover that they had taken down the barn and had constructed a brand new one overnight.
Yeah, you know how many times that their barns do burn down?
Well, I think they've lost count themselves.
And it's amazing. And I think it's amazing that, that summer lady that's living over there on the property. She says, "Well, by the grace of God, there were no horses in the stable when the barn burned." Excuse me, how?
Hmm.
You got,
Well, well,
okay, okay. What happened to Beth's mama? Her real mother is still alive, but she ended up divorcing John after
yeah,
she
she
found
found
out
out.
that John was starting to mess with Beth Ramsey's younger sister.
Well, it's not that. He was also having extramarital affairs. One with this prosecutor at the Fulton County solicitor or DA's office back then, which was Nancy Grace.
Yeah, hold on a minute. Somebody's asking me a question, but so somebody said unless was needed for equipment, why such a rush to replace barn? Because they want to get rid of any human remains that's in that barn to prove that no, to show they want to get rid of the evidence in there.
Yeah, that's why that one barn they reconstructed, the locked and it burned numerous times before it was either burned down or removed and replaced with another barn. Um,
And they wanted to make it look because people noticed about the barn being gone or burnt, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, there's a new barn there, but they'll say, no, see, the barn was there all along. No, it's a new barn. You can tell by the paint and the different kind of newer equipment that's on it and stuff like that, like the door knobs or whatever.
and that plus this barn was located, out away from all of the um, other barns, the stables where they had their horses and cattle. This was way out there, just totally inconvenient for any type of livestock or farming or anything like that.
Hey, did you see the question comment? You got a question in there.
Um,
So John was rumored to have extramarital affairs. Do you think Patsy knew? Of course Patsy knew. Patsy was a part of it
I
too.
believe Patsy, if I remember correctly, John and Patsy's marriage was an open marriage. I know that Jeff Epstein's and Ghislaine Maxwell's relationship was an open relationship because Eric Rudolph used to have his fun with Ghislaine Maxwell as well. Uh, Ramsey's owned a home there on Lake Chattooga in Hiawassee, Georgia. And in the summer of 1996, I believe it was Fleet White and his family who was allowed to use their home while they stayed with Big Ray Duncan in his home, which is Lane Maxwell and Jeff Epstein.
Um, I want to also let her know also, Snopes says is not a true photograph of Ghislaine Maxwell with JonBenet. Can you please inform the people about what that picture really was?
Well, that was a picture of JonBenet in Ellen, Georgia during Oktoberfest when Eric Rudolph and Ghislaine Maxwell, I think it was either Matt McRae or Hunter Biden had walked up, and Ghislaine had kneeled down whenever the picture was taken. It was, her face was just so happened, to get everybody to get a sign of her face in the picture. Because nobody anticipated that Ghislaine would ever get busted or arrested for anything, so that picture had been released there to the public, way, I guess, before the turn of the millennium.
Yeah, Michelle, yes. You said makes you wonder if he knew Jeffrey Epstein. Of course he did, because he was at some of them sacrificial things. Jeffrey Epstein was over there when you showed up trying to help rescue your brother Fred, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ted Turner and some of these other people were there as well. But what happened with the how the oldest daughter got killed was it was raining, and that Derrington usually does not drive right in the rain, right?
Well, he was driving in the rain,
But not with Beth.
Not with Beth with him.
Right.
They had such a phobic about, you know, driving in the rain and being chased into a bakery truck is what they called it. You know, if they told me when we had our last meeting, that if I ever read a newspaper where they had a collision with a big truck, that they had been murdered. That was their number one way of taking people out, was to chase them in the rain to where they would collide with a, you know, big truck. And that had almost happened to me back in '84 in my Grand Prix when I got chased. I believe it was by McLaughlin that night. And I managed to slide my way back on the pavement on that road and didn't go off the bank like they figure I would do in a panic, because I don't panic when I drive. I don't panic when I fight. So I learned growing up not to panic, not to, you know, fear can get you killed. So I've always managed not to panic in bad situations, and that's how I was able to avoid the collision with that one truck in 1984. But of course, in spring, maybe fall '94, spring of '95, it was before the attack of the Alfred P. Murray Federal Building that Judge McLaughlin decided to take matters into his own hands and come down to Evergreen, Alabama, where I was living, and tried to chase my 1983 Pontiac Grand Prix into one or two delivery trucks, you know, old UPS delivery trucks they had in the area that early afternoon. And he totaled his Buick in the brick mailbox of the DOT contractor for the state of Alabama on Grady Rawls and Sons Construction, of all places. That's where he totaled out that Buick Centurion. And another attempt on me. They totaled out like total 4 automobiles now trying to chase me around in lower Alabama, panhandle of Florida, from 1994 into the early part of 1996. I wound up switching to a 82 Z28 with the crossfire injection, but it had the high performance chip. So they were not able to keep up with me, and it multiple chases in it. One chase up in Brantley, Alabama. They totaled out 2 Z28s that was chasing me one night. If I'd made it to another half a mile, police chief would have seen the chase and he would have been able to intercept. But I went around a few cars on approaching traffic, where a big truck was in the traffic, and they tried to come around those cars too. And I had just enough time to fit back in front of the ongoing traffic from approaching traffic. They did. So there was a near fatal accident there in Brantley, Alabama, in that one automobile chase down there.
Okay,
and
Michelle.
I've recently been able to identify some of the boys that was involved in those chases down there in lower Alabama.
Excuse me a minute. I want to say something. Well, Michelle, she said both Patsy and John seemed so distant toward each other after the crime. and yet your child was dead. And first thought, gonna get up and going. Very strange behavior. Plain up going. And then after trial, John and Fleet White's friendship seemed to end. Do you feel? Well, we're going to go over that in some of the other episodes and stuff because the first thing is showing the how Charles met John, Beth Ramsey, and Matt Derrington, and how Beth Ramsey is dead now, John Benet is dead now, Matt Derrington is dead now, and so is their friend who helped try to rescue those two boys from that barn, right?
That's right. And they're not my only colleagues that are there.
And the thing about it is, he threatened Beth that he was going to kill John Benet on the anniversary of Jill Robinson's death.
That is correct.
And guess what? Jill Robinson, is her obituary says December 26th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he shot Jill in the face with a shotgun there in view of a police precinct there in Oakland County, Michigan.
Yes.
So, another thing that Beth, Matt, Paul, and I were able to discuss when I last met with them was their intentions to start a string of terrorist attacks in 1995. They were going to start just a whole string of terrorist attacks, which we know started with the bombing of the Alfred P. Murray Federal Building on April the 19th, 1995. So we're talking about the same people, what, people call the deep state. The people I later learned that was down there at the Chattahoochee River that night that I did not see were people like Arthur Blank, Ron Brill, Barney Marcus, Ken Langone, all the founding executives of the Home Depot Corporation. Of course, Ted Turner, Larry Fink, Les Wexner, all the members of the Mossad who was involved in the Six-Day War in 1967 for Israel. They got a free card to come over here to the United States and open up business. And the only thing I could figure was through John working for the Navy there at the training base there in the Philippines where he met Lucy, his first wife, that is that is probably how he wound up in the connections that he did with the Mossad, because we know that on June the 9th, 1967, the Israeli forces tried to sink the USS Liberty. So on June the 19th, 1997, Home Depot tried to have its own corporate headquarters attacked with a truck bomb that was constructed by Eric Rudolph and Matt McRae. Of course, three brothers of the Cook family, Mike Cook, Jeff Cook, and Fred Cook, were involved in that attack, along with anonymous caller to the Centennial Park attack, Joey Davis.
Right.
These are the same people that was in the Ramsey home.
Right. So we don't want to say too much. We don't want to say too much and give that away yet, So what do you think that our next step should be on what we talk about since you first started talking about John Ramsey, Beth Ramsey, and Matt Derrington? Should we bring in there how what do you think? Do we need to bring in there more about Eric Rudolph being John Benet's instructor?
Well,
Um,
yeah, Eric
and the
Rudolph was
connection between, huh?
Eric Rudolph was her water skiing instructor in summer of '96.
And how Hunter Biden knew, Eric Rudolph, they were buddies and all this other kind of stuff, whatever.
Well, after the search for Eric Rudolph began um, on the 29th, January '98, um, you know, media, they approached Zell Miller, who was governor of the state of Georgia,
Uh huh.
and they asked Zell um, what his friendship with Eric Rudolph was, and he denied knowing Eric Rudolph, and they were like, well, Governor, he worked for you. He goes, well, he worked as a contractor. How can I know every contractor who works for you?
Oh, but I thought he didn't know him.
Well, he knew him enough to recommend him for teaching water skiing lessons. There was Jen. I don't want to say her last name. Her dad is from Alpharetta, Georgia, and her mom is from Nantahala, North Carolina.
Yeah, and what's amazing about all this is how many homes these, and we call them basically the gridiron, right? How many homes in all these different states that these people have. And then it's kind of funny if you don't find them in that percent home. Well, there's another friend that's got a house in that area. Oh, you're staying with over here and that. It's kind of like cover ups and cover ups and cover ups.
They have homes in the same area, and another friend won't have a home, so they'll let that friend stay in their home. They'll go stay with some other friends in another home. I mean, that's what they were doing on Lake Chattooga in 1996. Was let the whites use their home on their Lake Chattooga while they stayed with, Ray Duncan, and Ray, founder of Duncan Oil, his brother Sam.
Yes.
Still lives there in Murphy, North Carolina, but Duncan Oil's listed out of Boulder, Colorado.
And see, you even seen pictures of Jimmy Carter going to up there in Colorado, and like to a ski instructing thing. Do you think that he did snow ski instructing too? Possibly.
Well, just like that picture with John Wayne Gacy and Roseland there from 1977 and 1978 before Gacy was arrested. You listen to that song, Red Rider, the Lunatic Fringe, and what they're singing about is really what we call the deep state, the stepful, the gridiron.
Right.
And its partnership with the British Crown and the Mossad is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
So things are now coming out that really the state of Israel is nothing but a bunch of converts to Judaism. They're not even of the lineage of Judah nor of the tribes of Israel. And we've been over there supporting this Zionist state of Israel, who is really the ones in charge of the human trafficking in the world on this global pedophile network that John Ramsey and all these other people are involved in, including the Bidens, they say the Clintons and all of them. But, Jeffrey Epstein, second time I ever saw Jeffy in my life was the day after the Centennial Park attack there at the Huddle House in Blairsville, Georgia.
Yeah, with a young girl.
With Jim, the figure skater whose mother was from Nantahala and her daddy from Alpharetta. Well, right. She was supposed to be taking water skiing lessons that day. She wasn't supposed to be dressed up in a pair of high heels with a single body mini skirt. White plain rose-colored glasses.
Right.
Because her parents had a fit when they found out she was over there with a 45 to 47-year-old guy dressed up like a prostitute. shooting a huddle house there in Blairsville.
Yes. So I think we gave the people enough things today, and we'll discuss on what we need to discuss for part two.
Well, what I would suggest so the people in Canada can kind of get some idea about what they had in mind for Canada as well as the U.S. in the 1990s is we'll cover the Terry Nichols and the Blair Adams stories, where people can get a full understanding how Terry Nichols really did more to upset the bombing of the Atherby Murray Federal Building from the stunts that he pulled and tried to participate, and why and how Blair Adams wound up as being a Canadian national over there in Knoxville, Tennessee, there in July of 1996.
Yes, and this all still comes together into the JonBenet Ramsey murder, right?
Well, JonBenet Ramsey, you just got to understand, she was just one of the many statistics of this death cult, and especially of her dad, because I'm just surprised John's been able to hold his composure together, not bust out laughing when talking about the murder of his, beauty queen daughter there.
Yeah.
Because he planned it. They planned it from 1991 until he did it. You can look there during the interviews. There is not one bit of emotions out of him whatsoever. At least Patsy put on a good show. John, he didn't even try to put on a good show for anybody. He didn't even show any type of sadness or anything other than, the same old long wolf intruder theory.
Right.
Well,
right.
There was 28 guests in that home during the homicide of JonBenet Ramsey. When you look at the size of that home, you'll see it's a mansion.
And and you ought to know that they had over 600 people questioned that was around that area at that time. And I remember one of the very first interviews about Patsy saying, well, we had our house open. It was an open house, and every year we leave our house open so people could come in and walk around and admire what we done in the house. Even when we're gone, we leave the house open. There's no need, for security systems or nothing. I remember seeing that somewhere before, but I don't know where it's at.
Well, that's because there was always somebody there in that house. John Mike Carr Jr., because he is junior.
And he was there, supposedly. He was there during the murder.
He was. I found this out in June of 97 from down there in Evergreen, Alabama, from Ray Henry, who told me he was there and where I could find him at.
And what was...
If he wanted to do anything with JonBenet, all he had to do was go to the Ramsey home there by Buckhead and Sandy Springs, because he had a key to their home.
Yeah, he didn't have to go through a window.
With his dad, he was staying with the Ramseys there in their home in Atlanta.
And we know that nobody come in that window because the spider web was unbroken.
Well, and John, he always points toward this person or this person out in Boulder, this, that, and the other. He never suspects anybody in Marietta or Atlanta or Murphy, North Carolina, or Hiawassee, Young Harris, or Detroit. There's always somebody he suspects they're in Boulder. None of this bunch that he's over involved in Cobb County in the human trafficking enterprise there on Bentley Farm.
And yet, when he went away, where did they run to? Straight to over there. And yet, when you got a daughter that's been murdered or something like that, right? Or you got a kid that's been murdered, I know you wouldn't want to be in the home. I understand that, right? But you also,
if I have a daughter, there's nobody going to be staying overnight in my house.
Exactly.
I'm not going to have a bunch of guests. And if something were to happen to my daughter, the first people I wouldn't call would not be my friends. First people I would call would be the police.
Yeah, and they even had let all their friends, a lot of their friends, not all the friends, let's just say a lot of their friends in that area, come in there, start cleaning up before the police got all the evidence all around. The police were so defunct in this.
Well, that's because a lot of those guests from the area there, they were not from the area. Some of them were, they were overnight guests.
And like you said, Fleet White opened up the, whenever the police came, they basically were in Fleet White's hiding out over there in that garage or whatever.
Well, my brother Fred, Eric Rudolph, and Joey Davis, Roger Nance, and the others, they were staying in the White's garage, and their guests did not even know it. But when they arrived to Boulder, Fleet let them in his garage where they had their little cots and sleeping bags where they slept in there, and his guests didn't even know that he had people sleeping in his garage.
Yeah.
So after that happened, they just went walking back over to Fleet's garage when the police came, and some of the other people that were still in the home were still in the home when the police came.
And
there was all this stuff about John going up and reading his children bedtime Christmas stories, the night of Christmas. There was none of that. There was people in the home.
Yeah, that's why Patsy still had on the same clothes. She didn't put on the same clothes the next morning, and she was still wearing them.
And nobody knows who ate the cantaloupe. I mean, not the cantaloupe, but the pineapple. Well, it was probably one of the guests who ate that pineapple.
But but she did have a piece of pineapple,
And had to get out of there just before the police arrived.
And I think it's kind of funny, though, because the bowl did have Patsy Ramsey's fingerprints on it. So she said, I never touched that bowl, but it had her fingerprints.
Well, yeah. And, it's kind of like Bill Clinton when he said up there about,
I never had sex with that woman.
About the Lewinsky case. I did not have sex with that woman. Well, he did. I mean,
yeah, that kind of sex.
Well, not everybody received the sex, but it was a sexual encounter.
Right.
But I hope that answered everybody's question. I'm going to have to bust off the conversation here.
Yeah, and I got to go pick somebody up. I dropped them off somewhere to do so they could do chores. Another neighbor down the road needed help. So.
But I hope this answers everybody's questions about the Ramseys and John's involvement, what he's really involved in, and what he's really all about. Because there's just nothing really good out of these people. I would love to see him brought to justice before he passes away, and especially his son John Andrew. And people, like you said, they need to leave Burke out of the picture, because Burke had nothing to do with neither of his two sisters on the side.
And if he did try to talk on what he does know, they would kill him as well.
Of course.
Yes, so he's not safe to tell what he knows.
He's about to have an opportunity.
Yeah, when they get all these pedophiles, a lot of them like this, yeah, he's going to have that opportunity, ain't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I thank you for what you're doing, and I hope you get your letters to these people written and sent out, including to Trump and everything, because we got to get this hot and heavy and get these acknowledgments and these people gone. It's too much of a threat to our children today.
Well, it's another threat to our national security again.
Yes, it is.
They tried to conduct 35 terrorist attacks there from 1995 to 1998.
Right.
And I was blessed by the Almighty to be able to come stop that string of attacks and provide the terrorists with a 25-year run to surrender that hydrogen bomb to the ATF. And I regret it again, but at least today, everybody's got the knowledge that really wants to get down to the facts of John Ramsey. They can Google search North Fox Island pedophile ring. Francis Duffield Sheldon was officially killed September the 23rd, 1999 in Western North Carolina.
And not over there in that other country, which he said he was.
Andrea Strassmeyer and Dave Holloway at the CIA, all killed at the same time in self-defense.
And also, there was that one lady that tried to help, and what was her name in Georgia? That one lady that was good, and she was killed, and her husband was killed.
Oh, Nancy Schaefer, Roger Schaefer, she
right?
was a state senator.
Yes.
And of course, Rick White, everybody knows as Richard Jewell. We believe he was killed as well. That it just wasn't a heart attack, natural heart attack that got rid of him.
Right.
I was the one responsible for him being the media fall guy for the Centennial Park attack. But once he realized that he unwittingly helped to stop 29 of 35 terrorist attacks, we became buddies. And we worked on trying to get the Child Protective Services human trafficking scandals exposed prior to his, and of course, Roger and Nancy Schaefer's deaths.
Yes. And sometimes
Roger backed away big time after he passed away because they feared that he had been murdered instead of died from natural causes.
You got so much information for us, and I want to thank you. And Monday night, I'll be interviewed again at Jeff Freedom's, and I hope that you'll come in there and you can validate some of the things whenever I do talk. I appreciate you. And
yeah, I'll be glad to.
Okay.
But thank you, everybody. I got to get out of here. I hate to be ready to get off this, but I look forward to having another one. And like I said, we'll do the one on Blair Adams and Terry Nichols.
Yes.
To give people better understanding about what these people are.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Lots of love. And prayers for your safety as well as we go against these demons. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having me on your program again. And got to check out and got to shoot at it.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye. I want to thank everybody for coming. God bless y'all. Please like, subscribe, and share. I think he gave us a lot of information. God bless y'all.